In the main story of Xenoblade 3, we learn that in order to resurrect Mio as Mobius, Zed orders N to destroy the original incarnation of the city and harvest its lives. From this moment on, we see an N that has completely buried any remnant of regret or emotions he may feel toward what he has done, but we learn later on that this internalized regret was strong enough to reincarnate as a version of Noah that eventually convinces him to turn away from Mobius. Using only the events of the main story, we can conclude that this attack on the city was purely a selfish choice by N in order to resurrect Mio, whether she would agree that the ends justify the means or not. However, in Future Redeemed, we see a new perspective of these events that serve to further humanize N and compound the tragedy of his choice, or rather the lack thereof. In Future Redeemed, we learn that Alpha plans to enrapture the citizens of the city and leave for a new world using Niall as a vessel, destroying Ionios and the rest of its inhabitants in the process. Z knows that Alpha is about to carry out his plan, so he sends N to destroy the city, not just to resurrect Mio, but also to wipe out Alpha's chosen people so that he cannot carry out his plan of destroying the world. With this in mind, the stakes are even higher for N now. Not only must he do this for the selfish reason of obtaining his eternity with Mio, but he also needs to do it to preserve the world of the Endless Now that is keeping him alive. It doesn't matter what N wants anymore. He really doesn't have a choice. He can either slaughter the product of several lifetimes of fighting against Mobius, or he can stand by as his eternity with Mio is wiped out before it can even begin. As you can imagine, this takes a huge toll on N's mental well-being, not even considering that his willpower has already crumbled by making the decision to become Mobius. So how does N cope with this lack of choice he's presented with? He internalizes his emotions and begins to pathologically justify his own actions. This is the beginning of a habit that we see persist all the way to his final moments with Noah in Origin.
I want to be with you forever. Those words back then were the truth. It's what she really wished for.
Yes, that's right. I wasn't mistaken. When I tried to give her eternity, that was the correct choice.
N doubles down on his resolve in order to avoid questioning what he's doing at any moment and making it appear as if he is in control.
You would never understand. This is my choice!
However, his facade begins to slip when he's faced with the most painful reminder of the life he abandoned, his own son.
Leave her! Niall she's your family.
Gondor presents a stark opposition in ideology while he faces down N.
I can't let you do this. What about Mum? Did she want this too?
You don't need to know. The burden is mine alone to bear.
N finally cracks at this moment. His admission is subtle, but completely blows open the lie he's been constantly telling himself. N regrets what he's done. He considers it a burden. He doesn't want anyone other than himself to feel the repercussions of slaughtering his descendants, even if it was for the survival of the world. And he's struggling under the weight of whether Mio will even approve of what he's done.
Mum would tell you to let it go, I'm sure. I know it. But you can't choose this path.
Gondor.
What Gondor is alluding to here is the most tragic part of all of this. As Mobius, N is incapable of moving forward, out of the past and letting go of this suffocating regret, forever trapped in a present of sadness that he can't avoid, no matter what he tells himself or how he justifies his actions. The moment N gave in and became Mobius, he locked himself off from the path to the future, the path to healing through connecting with others.
Niall! Granddad!
This is the path I have chosen. Matthew,
Granddad!
take care of Niall, the future.
Granddad!
It's in your hands, Matthew.
Gondor uses his last moments to provide N, his own father, an example of the path he could have taken. He surrenders the future of the city to Matthew, his descendant, in contrast to the way N has treated his offspring. Gondor uses the bonds he has formed, the connections his father told him to make, to be content in handing off his hopes and dreams to the younger generation and to the future. He uses his Ouroboros power to strike Niall, most likely in an attempt to separate her from Alpha, and causes an explosion that prevents N from reaching Alpha and completely destroys the city, along with the people Alpha had gathered. As we know, Gondor was not successful in freeing Niall from Alpha's grasp, but since he was weakened in his fight with N, the effects of the Ouroboros power allowed the fragments of Alpha's past experiences and memories to coalesce and take the form of A, separate from Alpha. We can now see that N's attack on the city, in addition to being a selfish action for his own gain, was also a deeply conflicting moment for him that forever affected the way he handled his emotions and justified his ideals. When this memory is shown to the party after their clash on Prison Island, Matthew is able to begin to understand why N attacked the city. Here we are able to see a prime example of N's chronic justification in order to cope with the choices he has made. First, he dehumanizes the people of the city he cut down by referring to them as a source of power for Alpha.
The people who are of the city are the future of this world. And in Alpha's eyes, they are a crucial source of power.
So you killed them all? Killed Granddad?
It was Gondor's choice. I simply cut him down, as he desired.
Stop taking the piss! Granddad wouldn't! He'd never side with the likes of you!
When faced with the reality that he took their lives, he creates a false support in Gondor in order to, again, remove blame from himself. In N's mind, since Gondor didn't want N to kill Niall, then he must have agreed with him that the city's citizens should die to rob Alpha of his power source. Obviously, this situation was not a binary decision, as Gondor wanted to protect his family as well as the future of the city and all life within it, but N is warping his retelling of the events in his favor in order to cope with the memory. Matthew doesn't believe this, even for an instant, and chances are, neither does N. Throughout both Future Redeemed and the main story, we see N continue to verbally reaffirm his ideals and decisions. This is likely just another coping mechanism to try and get away from the regret he truly feels and has internalized over almost everything he's done.
Are you really that much of an idiot? It's not just us, you know. It's your ass as well. It's all of that and more that he meant. And if you can't get that into your head, you're about the dumbest bastard there is.
Matthew.
Let's go.
At this point, N quits responding to Matthew's rebuttal. You can see how dejected he is, making it obvious that he doesn't truly believe the justifications he's constantly spouting. He knows everything Matthew just said is right, and that's probably what stirs him to put his trust in him and in Ouroboros in the final fight against Alpha.
Drive it in! Release the power of Ouroboros!
He has seen how Matthew's resolve matches that of Gondor, and how Gondor was right to entrust the future to him. He understands that, for now, their conviction is stronger than his false confidence in his path, and has better odds at defeating their mutual threat. But this clarity is short-lived, as N's Mobius ways take hold once more after the battle. With the threat to the world resolved, N descends back into the cycle of denial and justification.
Mobius will never change, in any way. Forever transfixed, they will guard the endless now to the last.
Including you.
Naturally.
Well then, we'll be busy.
What if you cannot make it happen? Your lives are pitifully short.
We went over this. You got wax in your ears. If I can't, someone else will, down the line. Who knows? Maybe it'll even be you.
Matthew understands N now, and knows there is a minuscule chance for him to change his ways. With the knowledge of the regrets he holds inside, there is yet hope that he can see reason one day. And sometimes, the only way to resolve an internal struggle like this is to face yourself and make a fundamental change from within.
I am one who lives in the now. My blade knows no regrets.
Yeah, right, dude. Keep telling yourself that.